Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Coworking Values Podcast, the exciting, amazing podcast of the European Co-Working Assembly. And a little word from Cobot, our favourite sponsor.
This episode is brought to you by Cobot, a leading management software for co-working spaces, office hubs, and flexible workspaces around the world. You know, one of the best things about Cobot is that it is produced by people who manage a co-working space and know the ins and outs of the main problems and issues bugging co-working managers. So if you want more time for your coworkers and community, check out Cobot at cobot.me and take your co-working management to the next level.
Yeah, Selco managed to say that exactly the same every week, even if he's not in the room. So today, as you can tell by if you follow us online, and I'm sure you do, we're ranting about European Freelancers Week, and I've tracked down two of the most important people in the co-working, co-living, and freelancing universe in Europe, and that is the Grand Master, Jeannine. The most ungrandmasterous person on the face of the planet. So, Jeannine, for the few people that don't know you, who are you and what do you do?
My name's let me check. Okay, my name's Jeannine van Linden. I am involved with the European Co-Working Assembly. I am involved with coworking.com, which is run by a global org called Open Co-Working, and I run a network of co-working spaces in the Netherlands.
Is that all? And she's a housewife, a mother, and walks the dogs and plays Pokemon with my son.
You forgot about my fintech.
Yeah, and the fintech. Yeah. What's the fintech? Come on, we should tell people about that, because that is Co-Work Tools. What is it?
Co-Work Tools is it is possibly, it's a project still in development, but it is probably the most fun project I've ever done, because we're having a call about it last week, and I looked at the screen and I suddenly realized that every single person on that call was either my current coworker or my former coworker. And that's because you weren't there, Bernie. So, in any event, it's, what we have done is, as the European Co-Working Assembly is, we have partnered with a financial institution known as Velvet, and we have developed a number of tools which are specifically financial tools, which are specifically created for the new economy, which is what we're talking about on this podcast. So for the people who are running co-living spaces, the people who are running co-working spaces, the people who work in co-working spaces, we are creating you the stuff, the infrastructure you need to run your finances without having to bend yourself into 16 different shapes to fit yourself into a box that you absolutely don't fit into. This box is made for you. That was its purpose. We've been working on it now for, oh my goodness.
2 years.
Yes. It's about 2 years. And along the way, we are adding, those are the ones that are specifically related to finance. We are adding other tools which are not specifically related to finance, but are related to running your co-living, co-working space. And we are hearing from new people every day. For something to qualify as a co-work tool, it has to be either developed in collaboration with us. And by collaboration, I do not mean a lot of things people think when they use the word collaboration, they mean some other things like you do what I say. Actual collaboration, talking to, piloting in, launching in co-working spaces, co-living spaces, and with freelancers. Stuff has to be made for you, or it's not a co-work tool. And or it has to have been, some of them are existing products that companies have, which have essentially we have altered the way that you pay for them, because the way we do business is not the way that corporate real estate does business. And so the way that you pay for services also is not that way, because we are the new economy. So that's my fintech. Is that
Yahoo?
Yeah.
And what's funny about that is in the fintech is you are the only person you're the only person I've ever met in real life. Everyone else is online.
Right, exactly.
We could walk around going, yeah, we're 100% remote company. But I'm going to move over to Cate, who is the rapidly has become the linchpin between the co-working and co-living movements in Europe, and is a big part of our where am I? London Co-Working Assembly. So Cate, I should have worn my t-shirt today. What do you do when you're not on podcasts with fintech owners?
So I either lead the ambassador program of Co-Liv, who is the global non-profit co-living association, and we're now present in 22 countries, I want to say, and 4 continents, tackling the 5th one by the end of the year, hopefully. And I'm also the London mayor, as I'd like to define myself, for StartUpHome. StartUpHome is a co-living space in London and is for entrepreneurs, freelancers, and startuppers.
And what else do you do? You're selling yourself short here, lady.
Okay.
Any podcasting?
I also have, yes, with Co-Liv, I also have a podcast, which is all about the co-living world, also the co-working world, as there's so many synergies together. You can find a lot of our events as well in there. They've been recorded and edited by yours truly, me. And when the London Co-working Assembly was a bit more active in a live way, and we used to meet, was it every month, right, for our breakfast?
Every month we'd have breakfast.
Yeah, in a different co-working space. And that was definitely one of my favorite events. I absolutely loved doing it. And coming early, helping out, doing the breakfast, etc. It was really nice. It's that sort of, bonding and community and connecting that happens so organically when people actually meet in the same space and place.
It is, and talking meeting in the same space, like us three and lots of other people shared a house in the co-working co-living conference last year, in Belgrade. So can you both say a little bit about that? Because when we say, oh yeah, we all stayed in the same house, there's a lot that happens like outside of going to talks and stuff like that. There's a like every time me and Jeannine, like every time we've gone to co-working Europe, we've stayed in a Co-Pass place, and when Co-Pass stopped doing that, we organised our own European Co-working Assembly camps at places, and me and Jeannine had a mini camp at Co-working Spain as well. But that getting together as a community, like, sounds so all right to me. It's what I've always done all my life in different places. But how does that work, folks?
Well, for me, Jeannine, I'm going to speak if it's okay for you. Yep. Okay. I guess she's not replying, so it means she's okay. So for me, that was my first conference that was outside the UK with regard to co-working and co-living. I went to an event, I think, in France before, but as a conference, that was my first one. And I remember you were the one who told me, and it was that day when we were up at Coffee's place. Coffee from Urban MBA, and we were doing the breakfast and we were talking about that, and you convinced Coffee to come as well, because then he was one of the keynote speaker with a brilliant talk. And I remember you were saying, we are organizing this. So I already wanted to go anyway, and I was looking for my accommodation. I already had my ticket, my flights booked. And then you both were saying, no, we are organizing this. So what we aim to do is to rent a place, and literally in true spirit of what the conference is about, we are actually going to co-live and co-work, together. And I said to you, that's brilliant. Yeah, let's do it. And it was fantastic because I know Jeannine, and could you remind me the name of the other girl who really helped us coordinating everything? Caroline. I mean, they were fantastic, obviously, with the help of Misha, who is one of the founder of the conference. He found this hostel for us, which was like a smaller hostel, because I think we had if I'm not wrong, 16, 17 beds, something like that. And we all kind of like rented it for those 4 or 5 days, and we all lived together. Some of us shared a room. So I shared a room with Kelsey from Catwork. Kelsey is also one of the Co-Liv ambassadors. She's the Co-Liv ambassador for France. And she's going to be a speaker actually at the conference coming up on the 22nd of October. And then I think you, Jeannine, coffee, because you're a bit posh, you had your own room. And then
no, it's because I snore.
Yeah, sure.
I'm a terrible roommate.
And then it was really nice because we had the boys, so like Guy, Matthew, Christian, and
Bryce.
No,
and B.
No. Bryce was there with his girlfriend.
And Tilo from Cobot.
Tilo, exactly. Tilo. And Tilo, they were all sleeping together in like this massive room. And then Antoine as well had his own room. And it was just nice. I remember the first morning we woke up early and Kelsey led a meditation for everybody who wanted to be, really present and kind of like up early and started the day in that sort of way. But it was just really nice. All of us walking together to the conference, and I mean, the organization of the conference was fantastic. So, the after party, let's say, the dinner after to get to know everybody, to socialize even more and to connect in the true spirit of what the co-working and co-living is. Because the co also stands for collaboration, connection, cooperation, all of that.
How did you, obviously you've got to say something nice now, Jeannine, but like how it's really hard to ask you the same question. What is it you'll enjoy about those co-pass camps and our co-working camps?
The first co-pass camp you talked me into, because I have always I have not ever done that, because I sort of had this feeling like I am one of the oldest people in co-working, and I'm like, I've got a little old for dorm rooms. That's a fact. And so and it's true, Kate. It's not about being posh. I've always been sort of a bit twitchy about that, because the notion of sort of a lot of people go to live conferences, and they always like punch up our end party is going to be there's going to be beer flowing like water and etc. And I have always found that just a little off-putting. I am just under 5 feet tall. I weigh just under 100 pounds, and the idea of a large number of people ranging from 30 to 50 getting knee walking drunk in one place is not my idea of fun. It's my idea of hell. And so all of that stuff was sort of around in my head when we talked about the camps. And in the end, I went to the first co-pass camp in Amsterdam, because it's right up the road, because it was on a boat. And how could I not? I mean, how charming can you be? And it was delightful. And so that there was a lovely division where you can, one of the things that I like very much about it, and that's why I keep doing it, is that you can indicate sort of what's your comfort level in terms of privacy and contact. And everybody in those places at each of the camps that I've been to has a very different place where their boundaries are in terms of privacy and contact. And it's just completely stress-free. And I am not a person who experiences completely stress-free all that often. I'm a little high-strung, inclined to being anxious about things. I always have plan A, plan B, plan C, and plan D, which is why I like Kate so much, because she's always got, she just like solves those problems. She sees them and she solves them. And all I do is dream up problems. And so it is a very great freedom for me to go to those, because there is a very relaxed approach where people just sort of effortlessly determine where your boundaries are and just respect them. And that's honestly not an environment that is particularly common in the professional world for much of my life.
And it's not that somehow it's like that forced community that in so many places happens. Doesn't happen. So I don't feel like I have to go in and do psycho psycho keep fit at 6 o'clock in the morning or be out the gang. I want to, Kate, can you say a little bit about, because there's a lot of people listening to this who have heard the word co-living bounded around, and I'm going to frame this as in 2018, I went to the Co-Liv conference or Co-Liv summit that
the one in Paris.
The one in Paris. Mm-hmm. Did you go to that?
No, I didn't. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to. What a shame, right?
So I went to that, and I really expected it to be full of incredibly annoying people in white clothes and tattoos talking about traveling the world with their Tim Ferriss book, and it was, and they actually, you know, most speakers said this is what people think co-living is, but this is what it is.
Yes,
and it was I want to say like a much more sophisticated way of approaching how we're going to live as a human race going forward. So what is co-living? You know, when people go, what's co-living? Is that like co-working? What do you say?
Well, there's two approaches. The first approach is I normally ask them just to understand, you know, in a sort of way, who am I replying to in front of me? Often, exactly as you said, when I explain to people that I live with 11 others, there's 12 of us in StartUpHome. So when I explain to them that I live with 12 other people, they look at me and they say, what do you mean? Like, well, I mean, I share the place where I live with 11 other people. It's 12 of us. We're a community. And so they say, what, like a commune? And I'm like, no. A bit like the hippies. No, we're not hippies. And so I try to explain that basically what co-living is. Sorry, I just got distracted by this fantastic, handsome man, which you can't see, but is Mr. Kofi himself.
This is come in, Kofi. Join the podcast.
I can hear them.
He wants. He can't hear you because I've got my my headset on.
Yeah. Hi, Jeannine, Bernie. I'll leave you all to it.
Thanks for popping in.
No, so what co-living is it's a place where people who are very similar-minded and orientated live together, decide to live together. It's not just a question of I cannot afford to live somewhere or I'm doing it just for economical reason. No, absolutely. It's not just that. You decide that together we are stronger. And this is working, living, exercising, anything that we do with a team around us, with people around us, which are very similar to us, it empowers us even more. And this is what co-living is empowering. So if you live within a community that is, appreciates you and values you even more, you find your purpose, you don't feel alone, nor you feel a loneliness anymore, and you thrive much more. There's always someone for you. There's always someone, wherever, just to have a cup of coffee or to have a brainstorming session or to have an evening out or to go and exercise. There is always someone. It's the cure.
And how is that developing in Europe? Is it because it kind of seemed to be crazy for a bit, and then COVID hit, and there was this like indecision about where it's going to go. So has COVID like helped it or hindered it?
So I think it depends on as an overall picture. I have to say that COVID has actually helped a lot. Has helped because many people have felt even more alone during COVID, if they were living alone, or if they felt even more out of their own space and environment, if they were living with people that were just random people. So the difference with co-living is that the main difference between a place that you share with other people and where either the owner of the property or the landlord or the property manager has interviewed you to understand who you are, can you afford to live here, roughly how old you are to make sure that you've got some similarity with the rest of the household. And co-living, the difference is that in the co-living let's say, spaces, the community is always very curated and the onboarding of people is always very curated. So when someone comes and joins StartUpHome, I take about an hour and a half, sometimes even 2, to get to know them, for the community to meet them as well, to understand if there is synergy, to explain who we are, what we do, how everything is, what kind of people already live in the community, and what are you bringing into our community, and what can the community do for you. And therefore, if something like a strict and strong lockdown that happened a few months ago during the worst time in the worst period, let's say, of COVID. So I'd say March till July. If something like that happens again, actually, you will find more strength in the community that you are. Like, for example, in our community, 2 new businesses were born during COVID, or they started just before COVID and they kind of like super thrived during COVID. I switched completely from just being one of the attendees and of the supporters of Co-Liv, the association, to become actually a big part of it and to start to run all the worldwide events. So to build a team of ambassadors and everything. And why did that happen? Because I had the support of many people around me. It was obviously easier virtually to reach everyone around the world. I didn't really have to travel to Australia to be a John, who is our Australian ambassador. I didn't have to fly there to be at his event. I could be there just 5 minutes before it started. So there's a lot of things that actually COVID made easier. And I think it also, another thing that was beneficial, and I think it still will be beneficial for quite a while, is that we are going to see a massive increase in rural co-living spaces, where people want to go a little bit further out from cities and big urban centers and be a bit more in touch with nature and everything else, because it doesn't really matter, right? Even if they are employees and they are employed by a company, now they are a bit freelancers as well, because they are able to go somewhere free, as in they don't have to stay in one place, in one office or anything. And that has really opened up a lot of doors in a sort of way for operators that have decided to push rural co-living even more.
I love that. Jeannine, we've been banging on about 15-minute cities and not being in town anymore. What can you, just to close, can you say a little bit about the Freelancers Manifesto and how and a little comment on how we're moving away from city centres and moving out into, enjoy fresh air instead of commuting?
Yeah, I think one of the things, at least in the co-working universe, one of the things that has been a hot issue at every co-working conference, at every gathering that I've ever been to, has been what we call them rural co-working spaces, but it's sort of a term of art. Rural co-working spaces means a co-working space in any city that has a population less than 50,000. So my original co-working space is what we would call internally rural co-working. And it was very clear to me 10 years ago when I first opened my first space that really, really in a very meaningful way, where you are doesn't matter anymore, that this was going to be a major change, and that people were not seeing it yet. And that has developed over the 10 years into we're starting to move much more slowly than I would like, but we are starting to move as a society towards the idea of a networked economy, which has a lot of excellent side effects in terms of accessibility, in terms of people who have historically been marginalized, and those things need to also be included in our models. And that change has been, of course, abruptly accelerated by the crisis of this year. Everything was already in place for that. And I think what we are seeing within the network of co-working spaces that I have, that there are a fair number of people who are in urban. We're having the reverse situation where people are in large urban centers, and they are specifically asking me, I want to actually co-work in a village. And it's important within the context of a network. It's very easy to do that without it being sort of a danger to the people in the village, because that's one of the things you have to look at as well. But there has always been a certain attraction to, because most of the people who are co-working in the large city locations that we have in Amsterdam and Den Bosch don't live there. About half live there, and the other half commute to go there. And the whole notion of the commute, I think, is right now being re-examined under the pressure of the crisis, and it's frankly about time.
It's I love the fact that you were a visionary, and it's I support especially women who are visionaries even more. But just one thing that I would like to add is that both in co-working and co-living, often the critique I receive is that, we are changing, we are pushing a change, we are molding in a sort of way society. But I actually think is quite the opposite. I think that what we are doing, or what we started to do a long time ago with co-working, and what we are doing with co-living, and what we will carry on doing, is actually listening to what people, especially, anyone who is a bit more innovative in any way, which doesn't need to be in technology, in the way they're living, in what they want from life and everything. We're just listening really to what they are asking us.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. I say continually, when I say co-working is the infrastructure of the new economy, what I'm trying to make clear is that we in co-working are not, and it took me several years to see this, but when you see it, it's blindingly obvious. We are not creating the future. We are not creating the economy of the future. We serve the economy of the future. The people who are creating it are our co-workers.
I agree.
Yeah, they are our co-workers. And we are in the beautiful position of being able to provide that infrastructure while they create the new economy, the one that doesn't forget people.
I agree, and I think co-living is doing exactly the same. People have moved away from wanting to be on their own and having their own space and being just is all about me, my space, because I think on the long term, what that does, it really cuts you out from a lot of other things. You become so intolerant about anything else, because when you live with other people, you have to learn to be very tolerant. And the same is when you work with other people. If each of us will have our own office, however big or small that is, you can do anything you want. You can play the music you want. You can wear whatever you want. You can speak loud. You can do anything. When you are in a communal space, there's rules and regulations. There's certain people that, do certain things. You might not like it, but so you have to accept it. And I think that will make a much better world.
And that's a great note to end on. I was listening there because we could go on for this for a while. I felt like I was in our little camp back in Belgrade listening to you two chat and having a hot cocoa just before we go to bed. So we have a few things to shout out. One is is run to freelancersweek.org and sign the Freelancers Manifesto. There'll be a link in the show notes to that. I'd also like to draw your attention to a book called New Aging by Matthias Hollowich. I always say that the wrong way, which is a lot of what Cate and Jeannine were talking about, how we live in communities and live and work in different communities going forward. He spoke at the Co-Liv Summit in 2018 and blew me away, and I've been ranting about it ever since. Also go to, and again, link in the show notes, if you go to coworkingassembly.eu and sign up for our weekly newsletter where we put all the blogs and interviews we do with people running local co-working spaces and local co-working projects around Europe. And this podcast, you'll get emailed to your inbox and where else every day. And also, we'd love you to take part in Freelancers Week, and that is in the show notes as well. And it's just, if you run a co-working or co-living space, you can run a small event, whether it's 2 people or 10 million people in an online environment, do that. Any final words before we hit exit, folks?
It's not. I do have an ethical statement which I would like to make, which is the fact that the European Co-working Assembly organizes the European Freelancers Week does not in any way mean that people who are not members of co-working spaces cannot organize events. Also, those of you who are not members of co-working space, please, by all means, organize events. They can be organized anywhere. And if you can't find a place for one, if you want to have one actually live, let us know and we'll find you a co-working space. It's not. You don't have to be in a co-working space to create an event. It can be anywhere.
As part of our ongoing inclusion and diversity,
connection, cooperation, collaboration.
I say that a lot, Jeannine, and that's absolutely right. I'd be horrified for people to feel they have to be in a space to be able to do that. Anything before we hit exit, Cate?
No, I think that what you do, guys, is amazing. And I am so happy that we get the possibility of collaborating and creating more and more synergy between co-living and co-working, and to create bigger community, collaboration, cooperation, and connection. And empowering each other by changing the world.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Stay safe, folks. Take care.
Thanks for your time. Me. Ciao, Jeannine. Ciao, ciao.
Thanks. So long, guys.